everyone. Thanks for joining. Going to give you a few moments to let more people join, but stick with us. While you're waiting, feel free to let us know where you're joining from in the chat. Have people joining from all over the US, it seems. Welcome. Up and some other countries as well. Thanks for joining. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Jobcast. So as you may have seen in the news, the job market is bouncing back, and now employers in industries like food service are urgently hiring to fulfill operating needs. So if you're considering working at a restaurant, whether for the first time or as a seasoned food service professional, you're in the right place. In this workshop, our panel of restaurant experts are going to talk about how the industry is evolving to make restaurant jobs more desirable, types of food service roles and the skills needed to succeed, and tips for finding great restaurant jobs. Before we begin, I'll cover a few housekeeping items. First, you're in listen only mode, so you can hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. And we're recording, but remember, you're not being recorded, just us. The recording will be shared out in a few days. And I'll be posting links to relevant resources in the chat so that you can go deeper on specific topics, but don't feel the need to click on every link if that'll be distracting. All of those links, along with the slides, will be shared in an email to you after the presentation. And finally, we'll be using the Q&A feature in Zoom. So an important note, if you post a question, your name will be shown unless you check the box to send anonymously. So if you don't check that box, your name and questions will be associated and seen publicly during the webinar. That's because you'll be able to upvote questions that are posted on Zoom to be answered live. So just give the question a thumbs up and we'll talk through the top voted questions at the end. So stay tuned for that. And please only post questions that'll be relevant for others to hear the answers to, because that's what'll get it actually upvoted and answered by us. If we don't get to your question at the end, you can post it later as a comment on the YouTube video, so our team can respond there. Now let's meet our panel. Jenna, why don't you introduce yourself to start?
Hi, thank you. OpenTable. I have worked at OpenTable for about 19 years, so a very long time. My husband and I also own 2 restaurants in Bend, Oregon. So I'm thrilled to be here today.
I am Christopher Wagner. I work with Kenney Cuisine. I am the vice president with a primary focus on development. I've been with Matthew for the last 5 or so years and have really seen and taken our company go from 8 or so restaurants to currently operating 45 internationally.
Hey, how are you? I'm Patrick. I'm Director of Hospitality at Matthew Kenney. So I work closely with Christopher and Alejandro, who is also on here, and grateful to be here today. Thank you.
I'm Alejandro. I also work for Matthew Kenney. I'm the Director of Hospitality for the West Coast. So I oversee operations, everything from store build outs to openings to day to day. And I'm excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Obermeyer. I am the segment manager for the food and beverage industry at Indeed. It's my job to customize the site to make it as helpful and useful for job seekers looking for jobs in food and beverage as possible.
And that's me, Brandy Warwas. I am on Indeed's job seeker experience team, and we're responsible for creating helpful resources and events like this Jobcast for our users, like you. So take it away, Sarah.
Thanks, Brandy. If you are someone who is looking to get into the food and beverage industry, or you're coming back after some time away, now is really a great time to do that. It is a job seekers market in this industry right now. We know that the pandemic was incredibly difficult for this industry. We saw millions of food service workers lose their jobs in a matter of days when the pandemic hit and restaurants closed. What we're seeing now is this incredible comeback in this industry. Food preparation and service job postings are up almost a third compared to their pre-pandemic baseline. We all saw restaurants slowly reopen, and then in a lot of places go from kind of 0 to 100 very quickly. And what we're seeing is as our demand to go out and eat and connect with our friends and family again increases, so does hiring demand so that restaurants can attend to their customers. And again, this is why for job seekers, it's a really great time to be thinking about this industry. When we think about this in the context of Indeed, food and beverage jobs make up almost 7% of all jobs on Indeed in the US. And you might be thinking, 7%, that doesn't sound like that much. Compared to something like manufacturing, that's only 2% of jobs on Indeed. So the food and beverage industry is just a huge, huge segment on Indeed. We have so many jobs, and we're always thinking about how to make it easier for job seekers and employers to find jobs and find the employees they need because it's such a crucial segment. And with that, I will turn it over to Alejandro.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So the industry is evolving, right? It's not what it used to be. We're seeing a lot of changes from, anything from safety standards due to pandemic to the way we're hiring. And with this comes a lot of challenges in today's market. And maybe we can switch to the next slide because we're going to go into that. Thank you. So some things that we want to be focusing on here when we're looking into what's been changing is the way we're doing things internally, right? More focus is being put on we're already taking care of employees. Is how can we better take care of employees and make it a safer work environment for every single person that comes into the building? So a few things that we can go over here are COVID. It's a hot topic. We all know about it. It's not a secret. So things that we need to make sure we're enforcing, and it's a challenge everywhere, is safety protocols. Everything from having to wear masks to social distancing to making sure we have everything needed, hand sanitizer, daily cleanings, anything in that source. And then it's important to make sure that as employees, we are doing the best that we can to keep everyone safe, your colleagues and the guests, right? This also can include stuff like vaccine scheduling. So if anyone in Matthew Kenney anyway, in Matthew Kenney per se, and other restaurants are doing it as well, they're offering it. If you're looking to get vaccinated, we offer support. Sometimes we can even go as far as offering compensation with proof of, vaccination to kind of help spread awareness of that as well and encourage people to do better for themselves and for the public. Other ways people are looking into getting better working conditions is PTO. Now, this most of the time falls into line of a salary position, but a lot of places are offering this for hourlies now, which is something really great to get into as we're trying to, as a corporate or as a industry, trying to draw more people into it as we're seeing a decline for working better conditions for everybody. The 40-hour week, we all know that basically the industry is hard. If you worked in the industry before, you spend a lot of time on your feet, you spend a lot of time working, depending on your job title, of course. But, we want to make sure that everyone's has a work-life balance as best as possible. It's no secret that in the restaurant industry. Sometimes that can be a little challenging. It's a very demanding field, very rewarding. But at the end of the day, we're always trying to make sure that we're encouraging work-life balance to get better productivity out of the employee yourselves, and happy guests come out of that as well. So,
Alejandro, do you mind if I just add on a little blurb to the end of that?
absolutely.
I think as we have worked in the hospitality industry for so long, we've strived to provide a hospitable environment to people who come in. And now we're seeing a huge shift in the industry where we're providing a hospitable and comfortable environment for our staffs to come in. That meaning requiring less shifts or offering PTO or sick pay, things like that. I think we're refocusing the hospitality. Instead of going outward, it's going internal to kind of keep our teams going, boost morale there.
Thank you, Christopher. Yes. So it comes into play here too. So what we found too in the restaurant industry is, not just us, everywhere, is higher wages. So for better, better living conditions for the employee. While the front of house is a difference between front and back of house a little bit here when there's demand. Positions that don't necessarily involved in the tipping process, we want to make sure that they're being compensated for their time appropriately. We ourselves have increased, wages that we're paying for employees, creating incentives to come and join us, which includes sign-on bonuses to some of our locations. We're expanding it everywhere. Basically, right now is the time to get in. If you're looking to get into the restaurant industry, now's the best time, honestly. People are paying for you to even just come to the door. So there's a couple places that are encouraging people to come, and you come in for an interview and they will literally give you a gift card, maybe, some cash bonus. And if you get the job and you stay on, there's other incentives as well. Sign-on bonuses, you sign on, you stay on for X amount of time, and you get a little bonus from that. It's kind of to encourage people to dive back in and stay and really learn, because honestly, it takes more than a few weeks to really learn the culture and business and see if you really love it. So I think that's a good way to do that as well. Paid sick time leave. I mean, everyone gets paid sick time for the most part in every state. So, but we encourage people to take sick time if they need it. So especially now during the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of people with elderly parents or people who are more, what's the word I'm looking for? Keen to getting the virus, or maybe they're around family members or them themselves don't feel well. We encourage everyone to please, if you're not feeling well, just communicate it. And we encourage people to just stay home, and we'll find ways to make it work. And also, we're looking into providing us, and I've heard a lot of other restaurants are doing it as well, providing mental health counseling, some kind of reimbursement for that. So if people, this pandemic has been hard for everybody, it's taken a lot of tolls. It's hard for people to get back into a mindset of working full time. From some people just didn't work, so people stay home with their kids. They're trying to figure out how to get back into it. So sometimes people will require this, and if we can provide it or we can help them get it, we do. And that's another great incentive. So another great reason to get into the industry. I don't know if Patrick or Christopher, you want to chime in on any of that? We're good. Okay.
I think that was great.
Perfect. Cool. We can go on this one. Great opportunity for people with little or no work experience. So this one's a big one for me. For me personally, I love hiring people with not necessarily the most experience, but personality, hospitality. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that person who's fun, outgoing, wants to be there, wants to learn, wants to give the best service to people, wants to make people's day, right? Big believer that at Blank Canvas, we can teach you everything. You can teach skills as long as you're willing to learn and put the time in, and that'll help you grow. I mean, on our company ourselves, a lot of our general managers, sous chefs, they've been with the company for, 5 years, 3+ years. And then most of them started as hosts, dishwashers, and now they're blossoming in their career. They're expanding. Some even leave the company, and then we stay in touch and we hear their success stories, which is great. Right now, our regional manager started as a host, and she is doing fantastic. So it's a great thing to get into. When looking into companies to work for, I highly recommend always asking that question, during interviews. how do you hire, how do you promote, or what's your outlook into this? Because it's going to give you a good mindset of where you're going to go and if it's a match for you. So yeah.
And Alejandro, I think our kind of hiring practices go along with our company practices of growth mindset. While we're always trying to grow our company, we are bringing people into our house and hiring people who have that same mindset, where they want to ask those questions, where they want to understand processes, even though it's maybe not part of their job, where they're just thirsty for knowledge.
Yeah. It's also important to note that we empower our staff. So we give everyone the opportunity to grow and keep learning. And it's important to make mistakes and learn from them. So we don't go with the mentality of a punishment, more of a reward. Say, hey, this happened wrong. Let's keep growing from it, as Christopher said. So.
And you absolutely, if you have a curiosity about joining this industry, you absolutely have what it takes. I spent the earlier part of my career in the fashion industry. I was just tired of breaking people down based off of how much they weighed or how tall they were or what they looked like. I always loved socializing and being at parties and hosting parties. So I just kind of went headfirst into the hospitality industry. I think if you have a curiosity or a passion for putting a smile on people's face, going above and beyond, being welcoming, hosting people at your house, even flirting, this industry is perfect for you, because what you learn within the industry are all transferable skills that you could use in your personal and professional life, even outside of the restaurant industry. I think now is a time when companies hiring are willing to hire people with less experience, because the job market is so oversaturated right now that we are willing to take people who maybe have always wanted to be a host or be a server and take the extra time to train them and give them the skills they need to have them join our teams. I think we're seeing this across the board, company-wide and industry-wide. What we look for when we are hiring our front of house is someone who pulls energy toward them, who smiles and who says hello and goodbye to people when they come into a room. We're looking for someone who is on time and cleans up after themselves, who shows themselves as organized and professional. We're looking for people that are inspired by the food that we're doing. They're going to ask questions about how it's made and why it looks like that, because once they understand that, they can be a really good representation of our brand. And I think at all restaurants, when you have your front of house team, they need to represent your brand. They are talking to the guests and answering the phone and packing to-go orders, and all of those touch points are really representing your restaurant. So for front of the house, we look for kind of the same things. While skills prior are great, if someone's a really strong bartender, it's great to be able to put them behind the bar and know that they can handle 200 people at once. But also, if I have someone who's curious about bartending and they've only hosted before and they show an interest in mixology, or they're asking a lot of questions about wine, now is a great time to hire that kind of person for a Monday or Tuesday on a quieter night, and we could help them grow those skills. And then for back of house, we look for, we're a very unique company where we serve elevated plant-based cuisine. So while we have a certainly specific thing that we're looking for in back of house, it goes along the same way with our front of house hiring practices. We're looking for people that are curious, that are asking why we're using a certain thing in our process and how else can they use it. I think for anything outside of a chef, as long as someone has that passion and curiosity, we want to bring them on and we want to mold these people. Kind of goes hand in hand with our company ethos of crafting the future of food. We have crafted the future of somewhat of the hospitality industry, specifically in the plant-based sector.
Jenna, do you want to talk about some of the soft skills that you look for?
Yes. So as both Alejandro and Christopher have mentioned, more than ever before, really exciting restaurant jobs are can you all hear me? Okay, good. Really exciting restaurant jobs are available for candidates with no restaurant experience. Working in restaurants encompasses so many important life skills, so make sure you highlight the areas where you excel and things that you enjoy. In restaurants, you're constantly interacting with guests. So this requires customer service, communication, and interpersonal skills. If you like interacting with new people, working in restaurants is a blast. After college, I sort of bounced around in my career and I decided to take a summer off to figure out what was my next move. And this was the first time I'd ever worked in a restaurant, and I had never had so much fun at work. The energy and satisfaction that comes from delivering exceptional hospitality is such a thrill. So time management and multitasking skills are constantly required when working in both the front of the house and the back of the house. Being able to juggle multiple tables, orders, and requests is definitely a unique skill. It requires the ability to prioritize many things, all happening at the same time. So a term that you hear all the time in restaurants is in the weeds. And this is when things are totally out of control. The better you are at multitasking, the easier it is to stay out of the weeds. The staff at high functioning restaurants definitely operates like a team. Every position has an important role in making, excuse me, in making the magic happen. Restaurants don't run smoothly without a great team that works well together. Great communication and listening skills are extremely important. Next slide.
Jenna, I just want to bounce off of your teamwork mention. There's this great analogy I like to use when we're kind of opening a restaurant and building a team. You could, if you all are familiar with New York, if you could imagine the subway station at Times Square at rush hour where it's chaotic and people are bumping into each other. And if you could imagine ballet dancers on a stage, how everyone's moving gracefully around each other and everyone understands their flow and efficiency and how to work together as a cohesive unit. I think part of that teamwork, as you said, is just high-level communications and understanding your team, how they're going to walk, what they're going to carry, what they need from you.
Thanks, Christopher. Part of the reason I'm smiling so much is because I am a former server as well, and I have so many amazing and fun memories of serving days. Just the other day, I was telling someone this whole long story about a summer that a friend and I bartended together, and just, I don't know. I love the vibe that we're putting out because it's authentic. Okay, it wouldn't be fair for us to tell you all this incredible stuff about working in this industry, how it's a job seekers market, without explaining how Indeed can help you. So I know we're saying it's a job seekers market, it's the perfect time, and I truly believe that. I also know it's not easy to start in a new industry or come back to an industry if you've been away, or even look for a second job in an industry. So if you are trying to learn more about specific roles, this Career Explorer that we have is really an incredible tool. It is so detailed and specific. So you can learn about career paths, you can learn about job satisfaction, salaries. You can even compare city to city, because living in a place like New York is not the same as living in Kansas City or a small town. And you can figure out how you can make more money, get answers to career questions. And again, when you look at this slide and see how specific we're getting, we're not just saying, here's what a cook does, because there's such a broad variety there. So you can learn about very specific job titles, what that job title is. Especially if you're new, you may not know what it means to be a line cook, or you might not know what a kitchen team member is. So you can come here and learn the real specifics about all the different roles in a restaurant, because it really is like a functioning supportive system, and everything breaks if each person isn't doing their job.
One cool thing, I'll just jump in there. In the Career Explorer that you can compare for those different roles is a list of skills. A lot of them are going to be similar to what Jenna went through. But being able to see, which skills are needed for the different types of roles, and understanding how your skills match those to know what career path to pursue.
Thanks, Brandy. All right, so how can you find and land a great restaurant role right now? There are a few things you can do to really set yourself apart and make things easier for yourself. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is creating a resume on Indeed. The reason I'm bringing this up is that job seekers with an Indeed resume hear from employers 4 times more often. So this is really just something you can do to make things even more in your favor. We have really simple formatting. If you've ever used Indeed before, you know it's super easy to apply with your Indeed resume to jobs. And then another really cool thing about this is when you create your resume and you make it public, employers can look for you. So obviously, if you're looking for a job, I know you're doing the hard work of searching and applying, you're doing all that stuff. But if you make your resume public, it's like you're just adding a whole nother tool to your toolkit where employers can be looking for you actively. And again, it just saves you kind of some time and energy in your search. Now, I am not going to pretend like making or updating a resume is my favorite thing to do in the world. If you want to see me procrastinate and clean my house or do anything like that, tell me to update my resume. So, and I see other smiles on the call relating to that feeling. If you are like me or like us, and you're thinking, oh my God, that's my worst nightmare, don't worry, we got you. We not only like, look at how nice this formatting is on this last slide I just showed you. And then second, we have examples for so many types of resumes. I know for me, when I'm updating a resume, one of the things I always think is, I don't know, what do people that do my job put on their resume? What do other people putting on there? How can I, you can come in and look at resumes and we have the most specific. It's not just, we're not just giving you a general resume. You can look up what is a server resume and boom, you have saved yourself hopefully hours of pain and stress. And you have a resume that you can send specifically to these types of jobs. Now that we've told you all the things you can do to get your resume great, get employers looking for you, how can you start looking for jobs? You probably are already doing this, honestly. But to get jobs that are really a good fit for you, we have all sorts of customization on the site to make you be able to see jobs that are a good fit for you. So for example, if you look on this slide, you can see you can change the distance. If you're saying, I only want jobs within 10 miles, I have a really hard limit there that's really important to me, you can filter on that. If you want to filter on salary, you want to filter on whether it's a full-time or a part-time job, you can customize all of this so that the results that come back to you on Indeed are a good fit for you, as opposed to you feeling totally overwhelmed and not knowing where to start. Again, our whole thing is we want you to feel less overwhelmed, more empowered. It is a job seeker's market, and we just want to make this as easy for you as possible. I will turn it over to Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. So I think just to kind of reiterate, like, I guess what everybody's been talking about and kind of the point to this whole slide is that, this is like really the best time to get into a restaurant. And this industry, I think, is unique because, you don't necessarily need any, you don't need a college degree. You don't need any training. You don't need certificates. You can get into it in many different levels. And a lot of it may be entry level. And I see like some people are asking, do we hire managers without experience? Not necessarily, but there is a lot of ways to get into the door, right? If you start in the front of house or a line cook or a server, bartender, and like in my career, I've developed so many people that have started as a busser or a food runner, and they're now GMs of great restaurants. And I think that's the point of this, is that you can get in the door and kind of turn this into a really great career and a lifestyle without the college degree. You don't need a law degree to get a job. And more importantly, I think is it's important to really like use all of your networks to help you get into these different hotels and restaurants or country clubs or whatever you're looking to go get into. Because I think that's the best way to get in the door. And like Alejandro, said it the other day, he's like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So, most of my jobs have been given from people that I know, like either former employees, former colleagues, friends, families, like, especially like in the country clubs and things like that, like where there's you may have a family member that has a membership in the country club that can help you, to get into the door and get that interview. Because, for me, it's one thing is that the resume kind of gets you in the door maybe, but it's those connections that help to build trust, in the interview and with the company. And also, seek referrals, especially if you've never been in this. It doesn't even need to be referrals from the same industry. It could be somebody from a bank that knows, the hotel general manager across the street or whatever, and things like that. You got to kind of think outside the box because, most likely you're going to know somebody within that organization somehow that can, get you introduced.
Patrick, if I may intersect for a second,
Yeah.
it's very important also to keep in mind that you always want to be hospitable. You never know who knows who in this industry, and everyone knows everybody. So it's really nice, like he was saying, once you get in the door, let's say you go through all the strings, and then you are performing and you're making connections and you're showing, that positivity. People want to be around you. It's going to be so much easier to get anywhere else in this industry through people. So keep that in mind, even if you're at your local coffee shop and you're dealing with a barista, like you don't know who they know or who that person might be. So it's always be the best you can be, to people, and it's going to pay off.
Alejandro, the one thing I would add is that if anybody has a friend that works in a restaurant right now and they're interested in exploring it, I almost guarantee that that restaurant is hiring right now. So talk to your friends if you're interested in getting involved, because everyone is hiring right now.
I know we're all piling in, but it's exciting and fun to talk about. The other reason for this, and I think what people are getting at, is like, this is the type of industry where you can get a job tomorrow. They are so, people really want to hire. That's under even not the type of conditions we're in. It's you can get a job very quickly. And people, I think, are very open to giving people opportunities to work their way up, just like people have talked about. And so making the effort here is really like, this is not like, oh, I want a job in 2 months. Sometimes that happens, but you can get a job so quickly, it would shock you.
All right, and moving along, and once you do get that notification, or even maybe before that, you're going to have that interview. Is, to me, this is kind of a big one, especially for like what we're doing in the restaurant industry. Being plant-based and really changing the way the world eats and lives. Is that for me, it's important that people really know exactly what we're doing and that they have a genuine interest in it, right? And most people, you don't have to be plant-based to work here or to have an interview, but you kind of have to know a little bit about what's going on. And I find the most common question might be why, what stood out for you to apply for this job, or what do you know about the company? And I get so many people that'll just say, oh, I just applied for the job because it was on Indeed, and they didn't even take the time to even look at the website, really, right? There's nowadays, the information is everywhere. You go to the website, you can learn so much about the company, about the CEO, about what they're doing, what they're opening, what's what the company is really about, their beliefs, and that really shows a lot. And if you can even look into the person who you'll be having that interview with, so maybe there's some type of a connection, maybe you went to the same school, or the same people, and that's kind of how you build the conversation. And again, it's finding a way to build that trust so that they want to bring you in, they want to hire you, right? And obviously I would also, me personally, I would try to come into the restaurant to experience it, to see, even for yourself, to see, are the people happy working there? Do they look happy? Is it busy? Does it look successful? And you get a lot of information just hanging out, even going to the bar, having a drink, and checking it out, because it's important, especially for me, to see how, see if I'm going to fit into that culture right before you even get to that interview.
Patrick, I think it's important for people to research the company before they show up for an interview or when applying for a job, because when asked that question during an interview, and if they say yes and mention one or two things that they've learned, shows an attention to detail, and it makes it much easier to hire them, knowing that they took the time to learn something new and that they want to invest. I think that will just overall continue if they're hired with their work ethic and things like that.
I also agree with Patrick. If you can, go in, do a little recon and talk to people. You'll learn a lot from just talking to whoever's working there. So.
Absolutely. And then, preparing for your interview is, obviously, the research, what we were just talking about is one of them, but, you need to be able to be prepared because the most common question, another one is probably, tell us a little bit about yourself. So, it's important to get some keywords, being able to talk not only about your work experience, but I think like you talk about your lifestyle, what do you do outside of work? People kind of want to see your personality, right? It's at this point, it's a lot less about the mechanics of can you do the job, but how are you able to, how do you speak? Do you speak, are you welcome, open arms? And it's also about like body language, making eye contact and speaking, freely and confidently. So, it's also maybe practice with, somebody mentioned in the chat to do a dry run, do practice interviews with your colleagues, with your friends, talk in front of the mirror, right? And just start to get your spiel out. So when it comes out, it's smooth and in confidence. And then also, reviewing, being really aware of what you are applying for and being aware of the job post. So obviously reviewing it and kind of get an understanding of what the job is. When we always post the job description, so people are aware. So there's, it should be very clear about what you're applying for. And if so you also know that if you do qualify for the job. And the great thing, like the point of this again, is like, you may not qualify for the job specifically, but if it's something that you really want to get into, like, don't be afraid to apply. Don't be afraid to get that interview, because chances are that, you still may get that opportunity with the right attitude and personality. And then, a couple of tips, like obviously arriving on time is super, super important, especially in the restaurant business. Like everything it's really like military, because it's like, you got to open at a certain time. You got to be ready at a certain time, pre-shift and all that stuff. So it really shows like your number one, your interest. If you show up, I don't know, 15 minutes late to the interview, most likely you're going to show up 15 minutes late to work. Right. So that's a number one bad sign. And also, like, don't show up super, super early, like people have schedules, and it just show up on time. If you are there early, which is great, just wait outside, take a walk around the building and just show up when you're expected. And dress is a big one. Like, we recently just opened a couple of restaurants, and we had a GM apply, who showed up, literally in a t-shirt and jeans, and like, for us, that's just not not very professional, obviously. So, don't underdress, and at the same time, don't overdress is what I like to say, because, again, we're not a suit and tie place either. So it kind of goes to what I was speaking about visiting the restaurant if you can, and seeing how the staff dresses. How do the managers dress? How do the hostesses dress? And try to dress the part when you come to the interview. And don't come with your uniform from your other job. I've seen that too. Like, don't come from the t-shirt at the restaurant you're working at. It just shows that, yeah, obviously you're busy, you're working, but take that 5 minutes to dress the part. It just shows, care, interest, that you really want to be there. Come with the resume, come with the printed resume ready to go. You may have emailed it already, but always be prepared, because a lot of times the person is busy that you're speaking to, and they haven't had the time to print it out, or maybe even look at it, because the resumes go through different sources. So give the person the opportunity to get it in front of them if they want. And again, about the body language, like, don't slouch. Like, eye contact for me is the biggest thing. Like, if you're not looking at the person you're speaking to, it's like you're somewhere else, right? Or whatever it may be. So it shows a lot. And come with, I love when people come with a list of questions. Like, sometimes it looks a little crazy, but to me, it really shows that you really want to work there. Like, we interviewed again another manager a couple of weeks ago, and she literally came with like pages and pages of questions about the whole company. And like, to me, I loved it. I was like, you're hired today, because it just shows.
Was this Jack?
Yeah, it was Jack.
Yeah. She came with all of those questions, and in the 4 weeks of her working with us, has become one of our strongest, best employees in our entire company.
Thanks so much, y'all. I will turn it over to Brandy now for the Q&A.
Great. Thank you all so much. So as a reminder, The recording of this workshop will be shared with you in a few days, and all of the links that I've been posting in the chat will be shared again after the workshop, along with these slides. So now let's take a look at some of the top questions that came in. If we don't get to your question today, remember to post it later as a comment on the YouTube video we send out so our team can reply there. So first, what interview questions should I be ready to answer as a server and maybe some for a manager level as well?
I think a great one as a server, if you're applying at a restaurant, before you go in for your interview, just take a look at the menu. A lot of times when we're hiring servers, we'll ask, sell us a dish. Pick one dish off the menu and make it sound appetizing, make me want to buy it. So I think reading through the menu items and finding a way to romanticize that and make it exciting, that's a great one to be prepared with as a server. And I think for any position you're applying for, come prepared to answer, tell me about yourself. I would never answer with, oh, I hate that question. Just think of like a 10 to 20 word quick elevator pitch of this is me, this is what I like to do, this is what I want to do in the future, and this is how I like to spend my time.
Anyone else have a favorite question they ask in interviews?
I think it's important to be able to answer why you specifically want to work at that restaurant and why you want to be a server. What about it do you enjoy and why are you good at it?
Yeah, that's where the company research we talked about comes in, and thinking about those skills that Jenna talked about, understanding, what stands out to you about the role and why you'll be successful there.
I think another good one that we like to ask is, tell us about a terrible experience you had at a restaurant. And then as the employee kind of explains that experience, I like to ask, what would you have done if you were in the position of the manager or server to make it better for you?
I love that. Okay, the next question, can I negotiate my hourly wage as a server? So it's a job seekers market right now. So is it okay for people to negotiate?
The time is now. Let people who are paying you understand your worth. Let them know that you want to make a couple dollars more than minimum wage, but because those couple extra dollars, you're going to go above and beyond, and your attention to detail is going to be there, and your hospitality is going to be there, and you're going to set an example for everyone else you work with. I think as long as you can give a great reason and prove that reason why you deserve more, totally your time to ask for it now.
That's good to hear. Yeah, and as we talked about earlier in the presentation, a lot of restaurants are offering some additional benefits and compensation as well. So hopefully the outlook for that is a little better than it's been in the past. Next question here. I've applied to dozens of places and not heard anything back, even though I have a good amount of previous experience and skills. What else should I be doing to get noticed? Or am I overqualified for entry-level roles, having previously been a manager?
For me, I would suggest just go like old school, just going into the restaurant or maybe even calling to see, I would say probably call first and ask what time would be good to come in. But like now, like old school was like everybody would just come to the restaurant and apply in person. And now it's like, everything's digital and emails and waiting for responses. Like we're pretty quick at like responding to people and like calling them, but like a lot of places aren't. And like, especially like the hotels and things like that, where there's just so many different layers of people, like just get your face in the door, go talk to people, shake hands. And that's my suggestion, because like literally I'm in Miami and literally every restaurant is short people. So like you walk in, you'll get hired. Like somebody else said, you get hired and start tonight, probably.
Also,
to our friend who asked that question, if you're in one of the cities that we operate in, we would love to hear from you.
for sure. Also, it's important to keep following up, because if you're applying, there's a lot of people applying as well. So we get tons of resumes, and sometimes they just keep coming and coming and coming. So make yourself known, send a follow-up email, and get back to the top of the list to make sure you're not being missed. And it shows, you really want the job. You'll stand out.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like there's obviously a lot of interest in hiring people, but that doesn't mean that hiring managers have the time to be going through, an excess of all of these resumes. So whatever you can do to continuously show your interest, it sounds like, will definitely help. Next question here is, this is the first time I thought about getting into the food industry. I love to cook though. Would it be hard for a younger adult to get a job in the food industry if they don't have a high school diploma or GED?
I think restaurant industry is one of the most welcoming industries where you don't necessarily need to have a
I
formal
think there's
education.
more opportunities in there. Yeah, Christopher, I would agree. And I think now more than ever, there's so many opportunities.
Somewhat related, what is the minimum age for hiring in the restaurant industry? Or what is the minimum age that you all typically will hire?
I think for us, around 16, we will hire. I know there's a lot of state-by-state legality on what the minimum age requirement is, but for 16, we are happy to bring people in the door and have them get their first job and have them get that first experience.
I'll just say, if you are under 16, don't let that stop you. There are places that will hire you. You might have to do some research on the laws in your state, and talk to specific employers or look at the job posting and see if it says anything about that. So if you're under 16 and looking for a job, this can still be a good fit for you. You might just have to do a little more work on your side to figure out what's legal, and what different restaurant and company policies are.
Next question here is, I have little to no experience in the food industry. How should I develop my resume to land a job there? Any thoughts on, how to create a good food service resume if you don't have any of that experience?
I would just put any experience you have at all. If you volunteered, if you worked with a family member somewhere, put some references in there, any achievements, anything that makes you stand out. That's a great way to do it.
And I think just present yourself well. Like, you are more important than your resume. So get in front of the restaurant and meet the manager and show your interest. Experience has never been less necessary.
And I would just add that if you do have other experience that utilized similar skill sets that you'd need for working in food service, so those transferable skills that Jenna mentioned earlier, any examples of customer service or teamwork, those things that are going to help you succeed in that role, even if they weren't done in that specific industry, are definitely what we'd call transferable or portable skills. So be sure to highlight those on your resume if you can. Another question about no experience. Do you hire managers with little or no experience?
We as a company, while we may not necessarily hire a GM with no experience, we bring these people onto our teams in different roles, key hourlies, lead hosts, with the intention of they want to become a manager. How can we nourish that and how can we see them grow?
It's kind of like you said too, if you have transferable skills, like we actually just brought on an assistant general manager who had the skills necessary to manage staff and provide proper hospitality, but hasn't worked in the restaurant industry. And our goal is to mold her and help her grow into her role, and then hopefully potentially grow into a bigger role in the company. So.
Great. I'm seeing a couple questions here about opportunities for people that are older. So it seems like the industry might be more focused on a younger demographic. Any suggestions for older workers looking to get roles in food service?
I think us as a company, in this current time when you're doing your first interview, typically via Zoom, we like to follow a blind hiring practice with first touch base with no videos, because we want to make a choice not based off of anything, off of age or weight, anything like that. I think for us, we don't really have once you hit a certain age, we don't want you in our restaurant. As long as you show enthusiasm, you're excited, and you bring something to our team, we are happy.
Great. Another question here is saying most places I see are requiring full open availability. Is that common? And should I still apply if I don't have complete open availability because of childcare and other commitments?
Be very transparent, because I know all of us have seen as hiring managers, people saying they have open availability, and you know you need to staff Monday night, Thursday afternoon, and Sunday all day. And then once they're hired, they let you know they're unavailable those days. I think as long as you go into that first meeting being very transparent about, I'm open these days, I'm trying to work on getting full open availability, but this is my current situation. I think that's the way to go.
Great. I'll take a couple more questions here. The restaurant industry can be a scary place to get into after being hit so hard by the pandemic. Besides the interview and sign-on bonuses, are restaurants going to offer other incentives like healthcare?
I think a lot of them do already, especially like if you're looking for like a full package thing, like the hotels. I spoke about country clubs before, like a lot of things like that. A lot of restaurants, even independent restaurants nowadays, they're definitely doing that. And that's just kind of another way in which the industry is changing because of this whole pandemic. So, other benefits, there's also benefits of a lot of times, like as a server, you take home cash, which in other jobs, you don't take home cash. Like if you're working in a supermarket or whatever, like you're not going to take cash home every day. And it's not every restaurant, but it's still like a lot that everywhere like that. And, even the PTO that Alejandro was talking about before, like 5 years ago, a lot of restaurants didn't offer that to only managers, like he was saying, but now most restaurants that have that even for the servers and the line cooks and dishwashers. So it's definitely changing more in that way where there's a lot more benefits.
And I would just add that wages have gone up across the board because of the supply and demand situation. I think you just are going to make more today than you would have a couple years ago working in a restaurant in most cases.
Related to that, I see a question here that says, I'm seeing a lot of server jobs that are paying like $2.83 an hour plus tips, which seems low. Is that normal? And what are your thoughts on this?
And typically with a server job, you will make the local minimum wage, but your tips that you make per shift could go from $100 to $800 a shift. So while it may be scary to take on a job where in an 8-hour shift, you're making $20, you may go home with $300 in tips.
In some states, the wage for employees that are tipped can be much lower than minimum wage. So that's where whoever posted the question about a $2 hourly wage, that's probably in a state where they have tip wages, which is there's not many states, or there are quite a few still, but they're getting fewer and fewer where that's the case.
Yeah, that's definitely good background for those who aren't familiar with the space to understand how that compensation works. Another question related to the pandemic. If I'm honest about how COVID has affected me and my career at large, is that wise or does it sound like an excuse in an interview, probably specifically?
I think you always want to be authentic and honest, but think through, I don't know how it impacted you. So if it made you, care less about work and more about freedom, and then maybe don't tout that in the interview. But I think it's always, as a general rule, be honest and authentic.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of questions about that specific to like if they have a gap on their resume because they were laid off or a business closed due to the pandemic, which obviously affected a lot of people. And our guidance for that is, as Jenna said, to be honest and authentic about your experience. If you were laid off because of the pandemic, a lot of other people are in the same position, and especially in the restaurant industry, can probably relate and understand the difficulties that came from that. So just be sure to make it clear that you're ready to start working again, if that is the case.
I'd also love to echo something that Christopher said a while back, which was that the restaurant industry is really one of the most open-minded when it comes to different types of backgrounds. That has really been true in my experience working in restaurants and people that I know that work in restaurants. So I really wouldn't let that hold you back. Like, get out there and see what happens, and take all these tips that the people on the panel are giving you. But I wouldn't ever let that be a reason not to go talk to people, because you might be shocked at how open and welcoming people in this industry really can be.
Take a couple more questions here. I owned a restaurant for 15 years and sold it, and now I'm trying to get a management or general manager job. How do I get past the stigma of companies not wanting to hire me because they don't think I can work for someone else?
So we, interestingly enough, just hired someone who, as a general manager, who owned his own restaurant for many years. And I think the way that made him very attractive to us is he told us what he succeeded in and what he failed in, what he learned from that. Him showing that he used owning his own restaurant and potentially you doing the same thing to learn something and grow, I think will be a very powerful position for you.
I love that. We have someone asking, is it okay to list gig work you've done while looking for employment, such as Doordash or Ubereats?
I think so, because it shows, different skills that you may not have in the other roles that you have in your resume. So I think definitely, and it shows that, who knows, maybe if you're working at Ubereats, maybe you can work as a delivery driver. They may not necessarily have thought maybe, oh, maybe we can hire a driver or whatever. I don't know. So definitely, for sure.
It also shows that you are a hustler, that you want to work, that you're enthusiastic to work, and you may not be able to find the job you exactly wanted, but you wanted to stay working. So you were resourceful and made it happen.
Definitely show that hustle. So last question here that I've gotten from a few people. Could you all say what cities you're actually hiring in?
For the Matthew Kenney team, and that is me, Alejandro, and Patrick, we are hiring in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Costa Mesa, Chicago, Palm Beach, New York, Baltimore, Maryland, and Boston and Providence, Rhode Island.
I love that. My husband and I have restaurants in Bend, Oregon, but OpenTable also has a lot of jobs available right now. So you can look on the OpenTable website.
And of course, you can look on
Our restaurants are in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, and of course you can look for jobs in your local city on Indeed. You can put in the specific role in the what box and your location in the where box. Or if you want to keep it a little bit more general, you could put, restaurant jobs or something like that in the what box and see what's available. Well, we'll wrap things up. If you found this to be helpful, check out our other Jobcasts at indeed.com/jobcast and follow Indeed on social media. Thank you to our fantastic panel and to all of you for attending. Have a wonderful day and good luck in your job search.